Well, my next guest here on the program, James Czerniawski, is a senior policy analyst in technology and innovation at Americans for Prosperity. And James is here because there's something that's been going on in America for quite some time. And I've warned some of my liberal friends about it. They laughed. They rolled their eyes. I said, guys, look, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution is under attack. Come on, Steve, that's not true. Really? Really? James, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
The First Amendment has been under assault more and more for the last 25 years, really since 9/11. And the Patriot Act, and I'll be honest, the Patriot Act is the worst thing that has come out of 9/11 to me because it has allowed the government to increase its power exponentially over and over again. They can come into the back door of social media. They can look at what I'm doing here. Don't kid yourself. They can get right in my cell phone, I'm sure, at any given time and look at what's going on, whether they admit it or not. There's a lot of overreach going on, isn't there?
Oh, yes, absolutely, Steve. You're 100% right. The government's always looking for an excuse to go and take away your civil liberties, one little step at a time.
And sometimes not little steps. So let's talk about the Biden-Harris administration, the power grab on free speech through its bureaucracy. They want to control information, disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. Look, all they want to control is anything that doesn't line up with their agenda and their talking points. Anything other than that that's not acceptable, silence! Where am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, recently the administration's Federal Communications Commission tried putting forward a proposal that would go and regulate the use of artificial intelligence when it came to political and issue ads. And the problem with it was that their proposal was so broad and the implications were so huge that, your First Amendment rights were at stake here for simply going and leveraging a technology to communicate a message about a candidate or, your opponent that otherwise would not have been as easily possible because of how expensive it is to go and make an advertisement, more broadly speaking, right? So the Federal Communication Commission with their proposal is basically cracking down on an emerging technology, fabricating an emergency that's not necessarily even there right now, all because they want to become the speech police of how these advertisements are running online. And that's really alarming.
Well, were you shocked here recently, James, when you heard Tim Walz say, well, there's no absolute right to free speech, not when it comes to misinformation or hate speech? I'm sorry, is he reading a different constitution than the one that I keep at my fingertips right here at the desk? Because it seems to me he's reading a different document when he says there's no absolute right to free speech. Of course there's an absolute right to free speech. I'm sorry, but that's what they believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that, Tim Walz needs to certainly go and take another pass at the Constitution. Seems that he missed that part because, free speech is definitely a very broad, protection that we have in our Constitution. And at the core of it is protecting political speech here in the United States. That was one of the core reasons why we saw the First Amendment go and get established, right? It was to go and protect this ability to go and criticize your opponents without having to worry about the fear of retribution, right? And if all of a sudden now, because the Federal Communication Commission with this proposal is trying to put its thumb on the scale and become a ministry of truth, really that's going and undermining a core function of why we allow this core critical, civil liberty to kind of move forward here. If we can't go and criticize people and hold a different view than them underneath the fear of it being labeled as misinformation, then we're not necessarily engaging in a true democracy insofar as that, again, you're kind of stifling debate where there might otherwise be that opportunity normally speaking. So again, it's really unfortunate.
That's what they want. They want to stifle debate. And in fact, when they say things about, I'll just use easy examples. The debate is over with climate change. The debate is over with COVID. The debate is over with vaccines, whatever it might be. A controversial topic, 4 out of 5 scientists say this, the debate is over. Well, the debate's never over. And that one scientist out of 5 could be the guy that's right, or the woman. And that's the problem. You see, debate is robust debate is the foundation of this country. The idea that we would silence people is frankly bizarre to me. I mean, the robust exchange of thoughts is also supposed to happen on college campuses, but it doesn't. And speaking of science, I go back to what Dwight Eisenhower said in his exit speech to America on the 17th of January, 1961. He said, one of the things that they don't realize, he talked about government funding research and how dangerous that would be on the outcome of that research. How true is that today? I mean, the government controls that as well. So how can you trust these people to give you accurate information when they're getting paid? As another example of the damage to free speech.
Yeah, I think that it's a very valid concern. I think the last thing that we want to do is empower the government to be able to become the judge and jury of what information is true that we're seeing presented out there for voters. At the end of the day, I think it's actually a little insulting that you feel the need to go and have this proposed rule in this sense, because again, that means that you're saying that you have no faith in the American electorate to go and process the information that's in front of them, or even, better yet, even if you do get duped in that initial series, to not go and have a learning moment and to go and, try to learn more because, you got dragged in from looking at something, right? So I think that's very unfortunate. And the problem as part of this proposal is that they're defining artificial intelligence so broadly that it's not just capturing your traditional, use case that you're thinking of here with like a ChatGPT or something, but it's also capturing a bunch of regular software that gets used for, doing video editing, audio editing, etc., right? The things that go and just simply make life easier. And when you have that kind of a broad proposal, you're capturing all this technology. You're not necessarily improving the information that you're trying to make available to voters, as
right.
do here. So really, there's no real good perceived benefits for the massive cost that is the threat to our civil liberty of free speech here.
Agreed. There is one thing you brought up there, though, that I think is incredibly important, that I do think is concerning to me. And that is if somebody can make a video of me or you, or a fake video, but it looks just like me or you or somebody running for office, and makes them do something, inappropriate, out of line, something that would cost them the election. I do think that there should be some regulation on that, because if you can duplicate me and nobody can tell the difference whether it's me or not, and I'm doing something illegal or inappropriate or whatever, well, that is dangerous. But that's not free speech to me. That's manufacturing something and creating something. My right to express myself sitting here with you should be unabridged. But what about that AI? What about deep fake videos that can impersonate basically right to the nth degree you or I?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The reality is that the technology is certainly not quite perfected to that degree yet, though. And that's why I think it's important that we just come to this conversation with a level-headed understanding of what's happening here. And more importantly, too, I think that we have to understand that the private sector recognizes some of that problem, and they have made investments and certain kinds of decisions on their end to go and mitigate against those kinds of risks, right? So Meta, Microsoft, Google, they all have rules around, using AI-generated content in election ads that are going to get used on their platforms, right? And then on top of that, those same companies are investing in research and development so that way they can have technologies that can detect when there's AI-generated content out there. At the end of the day, nothing is going to be able to really stop somebody that's a malicious actor from putting out something that is maybe disingenuous, and we can't enforce necessarily the law on somebody that's a non-U.S. citizen, because if they're not in the United States, it makes it pretty difficult, right? So, and that we have to go and do a better job of making sure that our citizen is informed and understanding what this technology is capable of doing. And then on the flip side, just making sure that the companies are doing their part to go and detect this technology and then take it down in the instance where we do have a genuine deepfake, which, again, they are making strides towards trying to accomplish.
Yeah, we have to be careful not getting duped in the other direction. Oh, I didn't make that. That's not me, when it actually is them, you see. And the technology is coming, James. You know that. So I break on the side of free speech every time. James Czerniawski, Senior Policy Analyst, Technology and Innovation, Americans for Prosperity. Sir, thank you for being here. You come back anytime.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly appreciate good conversation. Where do you come down on free speech? I know where I come down. All right, follow me on Twitter today and make sure you can support this program on Substack, the Stevie Ray Show. You can help us be here every day. And don't forget that big special tonight on Real America's Voice. I'll tell you more about that straight ahead.